All righty then. Looky here, looky here. Quiet on the set and action. All righty, we're gonna try this again. We had a little bit of technical difficulty here earlier today, and my name is Craig Reed, the Stoned Roadie, and this is podcast 36 of the Stoned Roadie Show, commemorating the 45th anniversary of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash that you all have been so inquiring about. And yesterday I posted that Kathy GODSEY and I would be doing this show today with the absence of Griff Martin, who is still moving to the central part of Florida. And I talked to him today, and he should be back with us here next week sometime. But we're going to talk a little bit about that plane crash, and I'm just going to kind of go back and share with you what I remember about that night. Let me see if I can get a. Oh, there we go. That's much better. See if I can share with you a little bit about what I remember about that night. It was the 19th we played Greenville. And to tell you the truth, I don't really remember a lot about that show. And I don't really remember a lot about that evening going back to the hotel and the limos. We must have raised a little cane, because the next day when I got up expecting to go out and meet up with limos to take us to the airport, I was surprised to find we didn't have any limos that go to the airport. We must have aggravated them to the point they wanted no part of us anymore. So really all I remember is like myself and Clayton Johnson and Ron Eckerman. We were all trying to negotiate rides from taxis and stuff to get all of our luggage and all the people out to the airport. And we didn't like to fly at nighttime, especially in the plane in the condition it was in. Nobody wanted to fly on it anyways. But anyways, so we finally got out to the airport in the taxis and whatever, and I was just about the last one to get on the plane, and I just remember I was really hungover, and there was a card table back there where Mark Howard, Ron Eckerman, and Steve Lawler was sitting, and Mark Howard was sitting on the outside of the aisle side. And when I came on, he kind of scooted over, and I took the outside, the aisle side. He slid into the window. And yeah, well, I guess all I remember is we just started playing cards. And next thing I know, we're playing cards and we're flying to Baton Rouge, and the next thing I hear is they're talking about us running low on fuel. And at that point, I guess the pilots had already kind of went down and were kind of trying to figure out maybe where we could make an emergency landing, because when I looked out the window, I saw the pipeline where they cut down the trees to lay those pipes in. And I thought we were just gonna. I said, oh well, if we run out of fuel, we'll just belly slide into that pipeline and we'll probably knock the wings off or something, but it'll be something to talk about. And I even made the comment jokingly, just pull her over down that Shell station down there, and I'll fill her up. I was winning a whole bunch of money in that poker game, and then I remember Billy Powell come back to the back of the plant where we were sitting and playing cards, and we were still playing cards, and we were not really paying a lot of attention to running out of gas for some reason. I particularly wasn't afraid of that plane. The plane, as long as it um, had one engine running or whatever, it was a safe plane, but you know, like any plane, you have to have fuel in it, you know. So as far as the plane was going, I mean, everybody else was kind of afraid of the plane. I wasn't afraid of the plane. The plane was a safe plane as long as it had gas in it and one engine was running, it would fly. It was but that was the problem. It didn't have no gas in it. Well, nevertheless, anyways, so all I remember is then Billy Powell coming back and wanted to know if one of us wanted to switch seats with him, and we were still intent on that on the card game. And then I don't know, time kind of is not familiar, but then Ronnie Van Zant come back, and I thought he was gonna ask one of us if we wanted to change seats with him, and I would have changed seats with him maybe to ask, but he just looked me square in the eye, and just walked toward the front of the plane. At that point, I guess we all realized that the plane was gonna crash, and we started preparing to crash. And at that point, I grabbed the card table and literally ripped it from the floor and threw it to the back of the plane. If anybody of you are familiar with Ron Eckerman's book, he commented that Jim Brace is the one that he said that Jim Brace ripped the table out of the floor and threw it to the back of the plane. That was actually me, but I went, then it didn't make it all the way to the back of the plane, so it wouldn't come forward. I didn't want it to come forward when we impacted, so I went back and put it behind something so it wouldn't go forward. And then when I was coming through, there was a goldish colored curtain that I have seen pictures of, that somebody got off the plane, that gold curtain. I grabbed that, and when I sat down in my seat, I threw it over my head and buckled my seatbelt back in. And then the next thing I remember is just hearing the swishing of the trees as we went over the top of them. It was like whoosh, 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 hitting trees or limbs and the tops of the trees, and then it was like bang, 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 and then that's all I remember. I was knocked unconscious, and next thing I know, it's like 14 days or 12 days later, I woke up in the hospital with my mom, my mother looking over me, and my first wife, my future ex-wife, my first wife, and we were getting a divorce. I had, when I left town, I took everything I owned that I wanted to keep with me, and I remember looking at her and goes, "What are you doing here? I'm not dead." And I don't remember if I said that or if I think as soon as I woke up, I said, "What the?" Because I realized it was in a hospital, and I goes, what am I? What happened? You know, what am I doing here? And they said, "You were in a plane crash." And I went, too much, you know. And at that point, I didn't really even think about anybody else being hurt any worse than I was. And it was actually a few days later before I even said, you know, nobody's hurt any worse than I am, are they? And that's when they said, yeah, well, Cassie had died in the crash. And I was, oh man, you kidding? And then they said Dean, and you know, Dean and I were like best friends at that time. I went, oh man. And then they said Steve, and I went, oh God, no. And then they went Ronnie, and I went, God, it's over. It's just over, you know. And at that point, I wanted to be released from the hospital. There was a nurse, and we went over and got my stuff from the police station. And I started preparing to leave, and they told me that you know, I couldn't leave yet, that I had to get some antibiotics or whatever. So they hit me up with morphine and knocked me out for a couple more days. So I stayed, and when I woke up, I said, well, okay, well, thanks for the trip, but I'm out of here. And I grabbed up all my stuff, and my mother was there, my suitcases and everything were all ripped open, and all my clothes were all laid out all over the place. And so I wanted to get everything I could back, and I couldn't take it on a regular commercial plane. So I thought I would rent a car. And Macomb, Mississippi, you can't rent a car, but you can rent a Ryder truck. So I rented this big old Ryder truck, and Leon Wilkinson's father caught us, in that big Ryder truck, and said, "What are you guys doing?" And my mom's going, "Oh my God, he wants to drive back to Jacksonville in this Ryder truck." And Mr. Wilkinson said, "Take that truck back." He said, I'll take you back to Jacksonville. So Leon's father drove me and my mother back to Jacksonville, and we got there, and I got my Mercedes and went and had a trailer hitch put on it, and put a U-Haul trailer on the back of it, loaded my stuff, and we took up from Ohio. And at that point, I just kind of relaxed for a month. By February, I was back to work with I took a job with Foreigner, and I did that Double Vision album in New York City with Foreigner in February, and then I went out on that world tour with them. So that's basically all I remember from that plane crash stuff. I don't remember a lot of it, and probably good. I was knocked unconscious. A lot of people have a lot of bad memories of people screaming and all that. I'm lucky I don't remember any of that. But I know we have a lot of questions that I kind of posted that, you and I were going to do this, and if I had any questions about the whole situation. And now's the time, since we're doing this 45-year anniversary commemorative show. So we have, what do we got going on, Kathy?
Yeah, well, I have a couple of questions from myself based on what you just talked about. You mentioned that nobody wanted to really travel on the plane because of the condition of the plane. So, what was the condition of the plane that everybody was so concerned about?
It was just an old plane, and
Mhm.
the engine was throwing fire, and like I said, it didn't really concern me that much, because I knew the plane, as long as it, like I said, as long as it had one engine, it would fly. I mean, the plane would coast. It was a real safe plane, but it needed gas in it. But everybody has their own conclusions about, when they see fire coming out of the engine. Some people are freaking out. Myself, I wasn't. I just
Well,
uh,
why were the pilots willing to fly the plane considering there was fire coming out of the engines? I don't understand
I,
why they would
I I
even
don't know anything
think that.
about airplane engines. If
Yeah,
Griff was here, he could
yeah,
kind of he knows a lot about those engines, and even Mark Frank studied those engines a lot.
yeah.
I'm totally, I don't know anything about them. I just knew that was a really safe plane, and as long as it had gas in it, it would fly, as long as there was an engine
Yeah.
running.
I heard that Aerosmith had rejected that plane because they didn't feel that it was safe. Is that true?
Well, yeah, there was some kind of a thing where they saw the pilots drinking whiskey in the cockpit. I find that hard to believe. The
Yeah.
pilots, they were, I don't know. Some people said they drank a lot. I never personally witnessed them drunk or acting
Mm.
um not responsible.
Yeah.
They acted
It's
responsible to me.
yeah, that was a real recipe for disaster. I mean, if the pilots knew that there was something wrong with the plane or there were flames shooting out of the side, and it was just seemed like it just should never have happened.
I guess they
Anyway,
didn't stick the tank. I guess
yeah,
on a plane that old, you don't trust the
yeah,
fuel gauges, and with the magneto running rich, and there was a lot of different issues. But I don't know if they actually stuck a stick down in the wing to see how much fuel was in there or not. But
All right. How long was the flight supposed to be from the origin to the destination?
From what I remember, 3 hours, something
Okay.
like that. It
And
was just
I'm sorry, how far were they from their destination when they crashed?
I don't know how far it is. From what I remember, we flew over Macomb
Mhm.
and they were talking about we flew over Macomb and they were talking about turning around and going back to Macomb. And I
Mhm.
think that was 8 miles. I think we flew over Macomb 8 miles and then decided to turn around and go back and try to get fuel. So I don't know how far Macomb is from Baton Rouge, but that's about how much further we had to go.
Okay. Another question. Why do you think Ronnie and Billy were wanting to switch seats with trade seats on the plane? Did they have a sense that something was going to happen? Did they feel that they were in
I don't
unsafe?
Billy just asked if one of us wanted to change seats. He wasn't comfortable with the seat he was in, but
Was he near the front of the plane?
he was on in one of the seats on the it would be the port side, I guess, the left side. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
on a
Okay. All
boat,
right.
that would be the port side.
And now, according to you had said about Ronnie just looked at you and then walked up to the front, but
Yeah,
according
he
to
did.
Gene Odom's recollection, that was a completely different recollection that Ronnie was trying to sleep and Ronnie was angry because he hadn't gotten any sleep the night before and he was lying on the floor and Gene was trying to strap him in a chair. So that's a complete, complete two different recollections of what happened with regard to Ronnie
Yeah,
and where Ronnie may have.
everybody's got a different story about what
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Gene was pretty frantically going up and down the aisles. He was really aggravated, and he was going up and down the aisles, making sure everybody had their seatbelt buckled, and everybody, trying to get everybody um in a safe position. And I don't know. It's so hectic in a situation like that for small details, just especially
Right,
when you go through that much trauma.
right.
My body was in trauma for probably a decade after that plane crash. I didn't realize it, but when
Yeah.
you get banged up so much like that, especially I had a very severe concussion, and they doctors told me that I would lose some of my memory. And I don't really know how much memory that I have lost. Once you lose your memory, you don't remember what you forgot, or whatever. You don't remember what you used to know when you lose your memory. So it's hard for me to say.
So Craig, have you physically recovered from this 100%, or do you still have wounds or things that are not, have never recovered?
No, besides, like I said, besides my head injury, I don't know how much injury I've gone through for that, but I don't think I've really suffered any body uh ailments, anything like that. I don't have any issues with that I know of. I have a back problem every once in a while, and I have some problems with that, but I can't blame that on the airplane crash.
So aside from the head injury, did you see you had broken ribs? What were your physical injuries as a
And
result of this?
all of my front ribs were broken,
My
and
goodness.
and this one over here would broke off and went through my lung. And so when
Mm.
Alan was severely injured, his arm, but he was able to identify people as they were coming in. And he told
Yeah.
me, he says, "Man, I thought you were dead." He said, "You were purple,"
Wow. Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I heard. Then Alan was able to identify, he was cognitively, able to identify people as they were admitted or in the hospital. Okay, so the next question, actually, this was from Pam and Casey Major. They wrote this in and they asked, we've heard on several occasions that everyone waited on the plane in Greenville for over an hour with the plane running and utilizing gas waiting on Artemis. Is that true?
I can't remember. Like I
Mhm.
said, I got on the plane, I sat down, and the only thing I can remember is we just started playing poker, and I don't remember the plane taking off. I don't remember the engine starting. I don't remember any of that.
Okay, thank you. Question from James Burton. Did anyone initially see Ronnie after the plane went down? Now we know that Dwayne Easley, I believe he was one of the first people at the site, or claims to be one of the first people at the site. Do we know of any other people who could have been there?
I talked to one of the rescuers on the phone one time, and he said there was actually a woman there that was like a nurse from the hospital, and she said she was actually holding Steve, and Steve was alive, and he was going, "I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold," which means I guess you're bleeding inside,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure about Ronnie. I'm not sure.
Okay. Brian Gibbons. Brian is a regular correspondent. He always asks questions. He's very, very supportive. He's friends with me on Facebook. He writes questions on YouTube. He's asking questions on Facebook. We have to address Brian Gibbons' questions.
All
But
right, Brian Gibbons.
Brian, we love you. I heard that JoJo, this is a very controversial topic. I heard that JoJo had been fired from the band, and that she was supposed to, I guess she was maybe rehired. She was supposed to meet the band in Louisiana to join them, but she didn't want to fly. I also had heard, aside from that, that all of the Honcats were fired, and then I heard that just JoJo was fired. Tell us about that.
Oh, the thing going on between Alan and JoJo was a little controversial, and and yeah, they more or less lived together on the road. Joe and Alan did. They roomed together, and they were always together. They'd go out places together, and yeah, it was. I think Ronnie was concerned that that was going to get back home, and he just didn't want that kind of thing going on in the band with all, just so he tried to put a put a little caboose on that or whatever, and I don't know if he sent Joe because he liked JoJo and Ronnie got along good, but just that thing with him and her and Ronnie were, or her and
Mhm.
Alan were, was a little out of control, and I don't know if he sent her home to to kind of think about what was going on. I don't know what Ronnie was thinking, but yeah, she was sent home, and I guess that's the reason. That's the only reason I can
Mhm.
think of, is they wanted to put a little
Well,
slow down.
judging by the pictures, I mean, I've seen so many pictures of JoJo and Ellen together. It was pretty evident by the pictures, and she had a real air about her that, she was just very, very out there. And I had
Oh,
heard that
JoJo was
Ronnie,
cool. I love
yeah,
JoJo. She was really cool, but yeah, her and
yeah,
Alan got a little bit too close.
yeah,
A
yeah,
whole bunch too close.
yeah. Question from Shari Padula. She's another one of our favorites and regulars. Hi, Shari.
Hey,
How
sure.
did your family find out about the crash? How long did it take before they found out about your condition? Now, I can relate back to 1977, the night that this happened. I was 16 years old. We didn't have all the type of communication devices that we have. And I remember hearing it on the radio that they said the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane went down, and everybody was just wondering what, who, where, how, why. We didn't find out till the next day who survived, who didn't survive. So, with regard to, your family and your situation, how did they find out, and how did they
Oh,
react
well,
to that?
I got six sisters and a brother and 30 nieces and nephews. Lord knows which one of them found out first, but then the management called my parents. I talked to, I guess they talked to my mother or whatever, and they sent her a ticket to come down there and see me. Her and my future ex-wife, they sent them both a ticket to go to Macomb, and I don't know how long it was before they found out I was alive or whatever, but yeah, and they didn't really know if I would survive. I don't know. I don't know. I can't speculate because, I had a pretty bad head injury, and, almost, I guess that was the only thing that would, I don't know if I was ever critically injured, I don't.
Well, which passengers were the least injured?
Artemis, Kenny Peden had his arm injured. I guess when Artemis and Kenny Peden and Mark Frank all teamed together and to go get help. I guess they came to the creek, and Kenny Peden said, "Well, I can't swim. I can't go any further than this." And I guess Artemis just jumped in the middle of the creek and said, "Well, it's just waist deep." So then they all waded across. So I don't really know what kind of injuries Mark Frank had. I'm sure I knew it once, but I can't remember. But yeah, that's all I know about that.
I wonder where they were sitting on the plane. I mean, it was just a matter of where they were sitting,
Artemis,
or,
I don't think even had a seat.
really.
I think he found a place back there where I threw that card table back there. There was a little petition. I think he got back in there, or in the back of the plane, and
Mhm.
kind of wrote it out, I think. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right. No, I know that the actual location of the actual plane crash is not where they have the memorial. Can you tell us about that, or what the circumstances were? Is that area not clear?
I
Or...
don't know. I know, I guess Dwayne Easley owns the property right next to it. And I guess some Oriental guy owns the actual property where the plane crashed. I guess some Oriental guy lives there, and I guess they use it to hunt pigs or whatever. I don't know, but I guess they used to go over there, and I guess there was a tree they called the Freebird tree, and I guess everybody kind of carved their name in that, and they had a little shrine there. But from what I understand, there was some weather, and there was a hurricane or something went through there and just like flattened the whole thing, and that the Freebird tree is gone, and everything. But yeah, they did what they could. They put up a nice memorial down there, and I
Mhm.
can't complain. I got my name in written in granite down there. So
I've seen pictures of that. I know people have inquired about whether or not you're planning to go there, or if you've ever been there, or because I
I
know that.
I was gonna go. I was gonna go down there for this 45th anniversary thing, but this country is so insane right now. I said, man, I'm not going anywhere. This just too close to the election, and just look what's happening. I mean, yeah, I could get down there and they go, all flights are canceled. Just no, I'm not going anywhere until after the election.
All right, I got a question from Chris Waldron. Hey, Craig, this is your buddy Chris from Ontario, Canada. Do you know Chris Waldron, or yet?
I don't know. I probably partied
Your
with him
buddy.
one time up there in Canada, but
You probably did. He doesn't remember, Chris, but that's okay. He said, "Did you
was
or
it with
anyone?"
Marshall Tucker or Leonard Skynyrd
He's
or
not.
Russ?
He just says your buddy from Chris from Ontario. I guess you're supposed to remember that, but he's going to comment on this one anyway.
I
He
don't
said,
even know what part of the Canada Ontario is
"I don't
in.
either." He said, "Did you or anyone ever keep in touch with anyone from Dean's family after the crash? And then he also asks, he heard that Dean was from New York, which I've heard, but he also heard that he was from Canada. Do you know actually where he was from or what the status of his family is? I think you said
I
they were doctors, right? His family?
he was Dean's father actually was one of the people behind the TV show Hullabaloo back
Mhm.
in God, it's funny. We watched the that movie Once Upon a Time in
Yeah,
Hollywood,
yeah,
and Leonardo DiCaprio was doing the Hullabaloo show.
yeah, yeah.
I thought that was amusing.
I
But yeah,
remember that.
his dad run the had something to do with the Hullabaloo show. And from what I understand, they were in the New Hampshire area, but that's I don't know. You'd know more about how far New Hampshire is from New York.
Well, it's on the East Coast. We're all Yankees up here, Craig. All right. This is a question from Dale Poole. He says, I know you're probably not going to mention this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. I want to know why the current tribute band is not taking care of the crash victims that are still alive.
Oh, um, that leads me to a story that we were going to talk about Sally Arnold.
That was my next question, but
Okay,
go for
we'll run those together then.
it.
Sally Arnold was and probably still is. Well, that's Lay Down Sally, So we know that she's very good friends with Eric Clapton and that whole crowd. And I know she knew all the Who and all the Rolling Stones, I believe. She worked with all those bands and she was very close with them. And when I talked to Kenny Peden last, he said he actually stays in touch with Sally, and that Sally had some recent illnesses, and wasn't able to work, and she wasn't doing very well. And I kind of thought I just kind of went, she knows all those people over there. I mean, multi-million-dollar people she knows, and it was funny that none of them would help her either.
Mhm.
And
That's
it's kind
true.
of like the same situation. It's just like I don't know. Uh, as soon as it's like as soon as we all left the hospital, I had well, I don't know what they call it, a public, some kind of a person that come around and checked on me. I don't know what you would call them. For a couple months, the insurance it would come out and talk to me and stuff.
Right, right,
But
right.
I had all my ribs broken, and but I was, I just had to heal. But they had a person from the insurance come out and talk to me and see how I was doing and stuff like that. And I ended up dating her. Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, I ended up dating her, and I took off somewhere, and I come back and I said, "Hey," I don't remember her name, and her mother answered and says, "Hey, she she's married." So
So,
yeah.
so this, why did they call her Lay Down Sally? And how did she get this job where she was working with all these bands?
God, I don't know. Lay down, Sally, and rest here on my arms. All I want is someone to talk to.
Was
I
she a
don't know. Lay
groupie or
down,
what?
Sally, and
Yeah. I didn't know until today that she was the Sally. I thought sounded to
yeah,
me like she was a groupie or something, like another what was the big groupie? What was her name again? the famous groupie.
Oh, oh.
I thought she was another one of those.
Oh my God.
We forgot her already.
Sweet,
What was her name?
sweet Connie.
Sweet Connie. Was Sally like that? I don't know. I have to.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no. Sally's very professional. Very, very very good looking. She
yeah,
was very good looking. Yeah. So
yeah.
Sally was, yeah.
So
She
she
was
was your
very
contact, worked over in
She
Europe,
was
you
our
said.
Europe contact through Peter Rudge. Yeah.
Okay. Well, she wrote something not very nice about Alan, and somebody put it on. And I'm not interested in buying this book. Seems it just came out a couple of days ago, and usually I buy books like this, but I don't like the vibe I got just from the clip. But this is what she said. She said in both Atlanta and New Orleans, Gary and Alan continued to fight. When someone came up to Alan and asked him if he was in Molly Hatchet, Alan would punch him in the face. Then came the final straw. Alan had been firing his rifle, stoned as usual, of course, and he aimed at a Craig, the Craig Reed, who had been with them from the very start. The only good thing about that was that Alan missed because he was so stoned. And she said that was it for me. I was out of there. I was done with them. So tell me about Alan with the rifle. I didn't know he was such a
Alan Alan
with
had that
guns.
30-30. He kept in his living room downstairs, and every time he would grab that thing and open the back door, that those things are really loud. He would just grab it and open the sliding glass door and shoot.
Shoot at
Bang!
what? Anything in particular?
Just
Or
in the
just
air. You don't shoot a gun in the air like that. But I guess there's so much water around there. I guess Alan figured the bullet would land in the water. I don't
oh
know.
my God.
Yeah, we had a wedding there for my buddy Todd Sims, and married my friend Pam, and they had the wedding there at Alan's house, and Pam was from Jacksonville, so she um, invited a bunch of her family and stuff to come to the wedding, and it was kids and just people that weren't real cool, so after the wedding, everybody kind of like went in Alan's house and kind of was gathering around for some kind of reception. And Alan looked around and went and grabbed that rifle off the wall and opened the door and shot it, and everybody that wasn't cool took off. And then he goes, "Okay, now we can party."
Oh my God. Now
And they
you had told me that
broke
Alan,
out the cocaine.
you told me that Alan pulled a gun on you, gun and knives on you sometimes,
Oh
right?
God, yeah. When I was there with Alan, I was there to keep him. They sent, I'm an alcoholic, and they send me to Alan's house to keep him from getting alcohol. But I tried, he would say, "Go get me a bottle." I goes, "No, I can't do it." And he would pull a knife on me or a gun, and I'll shoot you.
So did
Well,
you
I
go
knew he
get him
wouldn't
what he
shoot
wanted,
me.
or did you just not do it?
Oh, I knew he wouldn't shoot me. It's just like that thing with Sally. I don't remember that kind of stuff happens so often. I knew he would never shoot me. I was never afraid he would shoot me with a real gun. Now with a BB gun, yeah, he'd shoot the shit out of you with that BB gun. But he would, if he would if he shot and wanted to hit me, he'd have hit me. He was a good shot, but he did, he was kind of like, I don't know, he was kind of like Ronnie. He did some shit just to freak people out, you know, yeah, he probably did. He probably for some, grabbed it and shot, and it probably looked like he was aiming it my way, but he was probably a couple feet from my head.
Could Alan really punch somebody? He didn't seem like he had those
No,
long arms.
no, he didn't like Lubeck. I know one time we were in that white Tornado that's in my backyard he gave me, we were in St. Augustine, and he'd seen Lubeck in his Corvette, and Alan was very serious. He's going, ram him, ram him. I'll pay for it. Just ram him.
Now, was Lubeck in Molly Hatchet?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So was that an insult to Alan that somebody could have thought he was in the Molly
Oh
Hatchet
God,
band?
yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah, yeah. Alan thought he was well, Alan was, but he thought he knew it. I'm the baddest guitar player in the world, and I shall not be denied. I mean, it's true. He walked into a place, he just said, I'm the best, mother again, just build it. And he would rip off his Tarzan licks.
So what was the deal with Skynyrd, Molly Hatchet, Outlaws, Marshall Tucker? I mean, they were not, these other bands were not in the same, right? They were nowhere near as accomplished as Skynyrd.
Well, the Allman Brothers and the
Allman
Marshall
Brothers
Tucker
were.
band were Marshall
Yeah.
Tucker was huge. Beck
Yeah.
Beck they were huge. They Marshall Tucker headlined over Tom Petty, Hart. I mean, you name it, they headlined over them, and how they can't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just. I mean, they were big back in the day, and I don't know what the deal is, but Marshall Tucker and the Allman Brothers, they had broke, but Skynyrd wasn't when they broke, there were other bands like the Outlaws and Blackfoot and 38 Special, and without Skynyrd, those particular bands would have never broke. Outlaws, 38, and
Oh, I
like
believe that.
Blackfoot and
Yeah.
stuff like that. They'd have never done anywhere. Skynyrd helped them pull them through. We did that show at Richards with Lynyrd Skynyrd and the Outlaws, and the Outlaws were kind of they were up and coming band, and so when we played at Richards, it was like 1974, and Skynyrd was just getting real popular, and the Outlaws were opening up for us, and they came in like they were going to kick Leon Skinner's butt, and we just kind of laughed at them. It kind of intrigued Ronnie that these guys were so cocky, and stuff. So he kind of got their attention, and he made some calls and got them, some notoriety, and put, and got them strengthened their career. I don't think they had really got as popular as they did without Ronnie. Yeah.
No, and that song Green Grass and High Ties, that was a wannabe ripoff of Freebird. They didn't have that like that climaxy point that Freebird has. They kind of like let up and just kind of like deflated, because I've listened to that song a million times and I was like, this is a Freebird ripoff. Wasn't the same. Wasn't, you can't, sorry for the Outlaws fans, whatever, but I like the Outlaws, but that song was not nowhere near Freebird, the caliber of Freebird. But yeah, so a couple of other questions. I want to give a shout out to John Doe. He's on every week. He's commenting on YouTube. He's so sweet. And he says, shout out. No, last week's show, the show that was really short, or 36-minute show, a short show, but a good one. I love these shows. I look forward to them every week. We had to wait a few extra days this week, but it was worth it because we couldn't do the show on Wednesday. We did a show on Saturday, I think. But John Doe is a real big fan and he's very complimentary. Okay, a couple of other questions, getting away from the plane crash questions for a little bit. Okay, here we go. Okay. I've always heard, this is from David Lee. He's always putting nice comments too. Okay, this is for you, Craig. What does Mr. Reed remember about the Richmond show in '77? if you do remember that, Ronnie had a young man pulled up on stage in a wheelchair. Do you recall that at all?
I do remember. I do remember us pulling a guy up in a wheelchair, but I don't remember. That's
Okay.
about all I remember about it. That Ronnie
Okay.
wanted this guy in a wheelchair up on stage, and we drug him up there. And
Well, good for him. That's a good thing to do. Another question from David Lee, and I know a lot of people have mentioned this. I've always heard that Ronnie played without any shoes. Did he ever wear shoes or was he always barefoot?
I remember he wore a shoe once, I think, and it was just because of the surface of the deck or something. It was something that was not inclement to go barefooted. It's just like, no, you can't do that. No, anywhere where it was at all possible, he could go barefoot. Yeah, but yeah, if we would say Ronnie, that this ain't a good place to go barefoot. But he said he thought he said he could feel the stage in his feet
Yeah,
in the
that's what I
early
read.
yeah, in the early
Yeah.
days before he had any monitors to work with. I think he could feel the bass drum and
Hmm.
the bass guitar. I think he could feel that in his feet, and that
Hmm.
the bass guitar and the bass drum is kind of where your rhythm section comes from.
Yeah.
And you can keep, if you can feel the straight. He said he could feel it in his feet. I don't know exactly what he meant, but that's his. I know when you're standing on stage, you can feel that bass drum, and you can feel
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Another question about Ronnie. This is from Prince. Where did Ronnie get the nickname Wicker? And I know you have a family member with the name Wicker. I think he's
Yeah,
seated right be.
my dog right here, his name's Wick.
Yeah, there's little
Mm.
Wicker, and there's a Leon.
Where's
Where did that
Leon? Leon took off. Oh, he's out there.
where did that name come from, Wicker?
um, there was a guy in school, and his name was Van Wicker, and he was I guess he was a little fruity, and some of Ronnie's friends would say, they would all say, "You act like that Van Wicker character, you're a little fruity, and I guess because Van Wicker and Van Zant, they had the Van in there. They kind of, I don't know, they stuck it on Ronnie. I know, and started calling him Wicker. Hey, Wicker, instead of Van Wicker, they did a Van Zant. Hey, Wicker, and so
Aw.
only his real close friends ever called him that, and I don't know who I heard him. Maybe Gary and Allen or whoever used to call him Wicker. And as soon as I kind of got with the band, I just, oh, that's his nickname. I go, "Hey, Wicker," and he'd look at me kind of funny, like, "What are you calling me that for?"
Okay,
But
Craig, I got a question for you from Chris Waldron. He was wondering what was going on in your life during the draft for the war in Vietnam and why were you not eligible for the draft? Was there a reason you're not eligible or why were you not drafted?
my first lottery, I was in the first lottery, and there's 365 days in the year, and my lottery number was what was 356, I think.
Oh,
Real high. And then the next year it was like 335. So that's kind of what got me out of it. Yeah.
I wonder how Alan and Gary and Ronnie and all the other guys got away from being drafted. I'd like to know that
I
story.
don't know that. I don't know. I don't know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
They might
that's
they
it.
might have had high draft numbers too, I mean, if
Yeah.
you were above like 240 or something, I don't think you had to worry about it.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Wayne Mulhern from Australia. What book about Lynyrd Skynyrd would you recommend?
Oh, I don't know. Ron Eckerman's book is real good. Turn It Up. Um, Gene's books are pretty true to life. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
they're all the opinion of whoever wrote them, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
like Gene's book. Gene sent me that book that he I'll Never Forget You. And having met Gene and having known Gene, I think he's spot on. I've never heard anything, or read anything in his book that I've heard him say that was contradictory at all. So, and Gene never drank or smoked or did drugs or anything, so he seems to have a good recollection of a lot of things. Okay, this is from our good friend Kathy Keeble, who was just at your house last week. She wants to know
Samantha
how
got a new guitar today. She got a new
Savannah, Savannah. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
bass
she's gonna love this.
guitar. She
Hi,
was playing.
Savannah. Hi, Kathy.
She's after my heart. She's playing Black Sabbath stuff. I used to like Black
Well,
Sabbath.
Kathy wants to know how long you've been a vegetarian and what's your tip? What do you eat during the day? Typical meal. And how do you make that stone roadie soup? What are the secret ingredients in there?
I just made some stone roadie soup just today.
Yeah, I'd
The
like to try
secret
that sometime.
ingredient is purple that purple cabbage. I like that purple cabbage. I've posted that recipe before. I keep adding stuff. I'm always adding.
Really?
I put cinnamon in it, and I put zesty Italian dressing.
What?
Yeah, yeah, and I put all kind of stuff in it.
Italian
I used
dressing
to,
in soup?
when I used to just put when I used to just eat like green beans or whatever, just I put zesty Italian dressing on them, to give them, So when I started making that soup and I was putting all these vegetables in there, I just thought, well, heck, when I eat the vegetables alone, I put that best Italian dressing on them. I'll just pour it in my soup. But yeah, I put cayenne pepper and just, I mean, just
Anything
virgin
that's in the
olive
kitchen, you
oil.
just throw it in the
I
soup.
even put honey in it. I put
Sounds delicious, Craig. Kathy wants to know, do you listen to any music?
no.
Okay.
No,
Okay, Steve. What?
if I do, I listen to old classic stuff, and I like listening to old Skinner stuff that wasn't popular. Like we talked about, I've been your fool before,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
and
I'm always sending
people
you
go,
Amy
I
Winehouse
wasn't
videos.
familiar with that song. Yeah, there's a few
Mm.
Skinner songs. I like putting on the old Skinner stuff and listening to it, stuff I hadn't heard for a long time.
I
You
Never
know,
Dreamed is a beautiful song. I could
yeah,
listen to that song over. That's a song that you wouldn't initially think would be one of your favorites, but I Never Dreamed. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I could just play it up. I was talking about with listening to other music. I'm trying to get you to appreciate Amy Winehouse the way I do. She's amazing. Amy Winehouse, I didn't know about her until, just a few years ago now. I'm hooked on Amy Winehouse, but she's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, Steve Price. Hi, Steve. I don't know where you're from. You didn't tell us, but okay, you remember the time that Skinner was playing with the Stones out in Nebworth, and you made those really long chords so that the guys could go out on the tongue. And
Yeah.
Leon went out there and he kind of like, just was pulled back. Well, this is his question. Did you have Leon's cord tied around a pole or a scaffold? I can't believe it didn't come out when they went out on the tongue. So what did you do there so that it didn't come out of the
Well, you take the cord and wrap it around through the guitar strap. Where the guitar strap comes down, you take the cord and put it inside it and kind of wrap it around it, and then stick it in the hole.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not it just doesn't go right in the hole. It wraps around the back of the guitar strap, and when it pulls on the strap, so don't pull it out. Yeah.
All right, that's the
Yeah,
secret.
you see guys that, you know, they'll be up on stage and they'll they'll step on their cord and pull it out of the guitar, you know.
But you made sure that didn't happen, right? Okay.
Yeah, you wrap them around the back of the strap and stick them in.
Craig, by the way, I got a question. How quickly could you string a guitar back in the day?
6 minutes.
Wow,
I could string
incredible.
it, tune it, clean it, and put graph on it on the neck and the bridge in 6 minutes. And Alan used to, I'd tell him, and he used to want to race me, and I'd smoke him.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you're able to, are you still able to do that these days or?
Oh, yeah, if I did a few of them, yeah, I could still do
All right, on one of the next shows that I'm on, you're doing that. We're going to challenge you. We're going to time you and see if you can do the 6-minute challenge. Okay. All right.
it.
Okay. This is a question from TP. I wish they would use their real names, but his name is TP. Hey, Craig, have you ever heard? This is a good one. Have you ever heard Alan and Gary sing back in the early
No.
days?
No, and I wouldn't want to. You
They
think
didn't.
my voice is bad? Oh my God.
Have they ever tried to
Yeah.
sing? Have they ever
You
just
know, I
sung?
can't say that because I've never actually. Somebody told me one time that Alan did used to sing. I have actually saw microphone sitting in front of him. I don't know if it was for him or somebody
Yeah.
told me Alan used to sing. Maybe I don't
I
know.
would have
I
loved
don't
to.
think
I
Gary
know his
ever
laugh.
sang.
He had a great
I've
laugh.
never seen him try to dance either. Yeah,
With the
singing
long
and
legs.
dancing, I don't think was
Okay. Also, TP would like to know, have there been any stage injuries from any fans to the band
staging.
members? Yeah, any injuries? Oh, I'm sorry. Were there any stage injuries from fans? He's saying from fans. I guess did any fans ever injure one of the musicians or anything happen from as a result of a fan running up on stage?
No,
Okay.
no. We
Yeah.
always either me or Gene Odom would always get
Yeah.
them before they got up there.
Yeah. Okay. Steve Jones asked about Ronnie's voice. He wants to know, he says, how many shows did the band have to cancel due to Ronnie's voice? He stated he was losing his voice, but the only video that it stands out in is the old gray whistle. But that sounded like he had a bad cold. So what was going on with Ronnie's voice?
His throat was he had those polyps in his throat, and I guess he would strain his I don't know exactly, strain his vocal cords and they would bleed. And
Oh,
he
he
would
should have the
actually
polyps removed.
yeah,
Yeah.
he would actually spit blood. And then, you know, you'd think if you'd spit blood, you couldn't sing or talk for months. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. That was weird. But yeah, we canceled, I don't know, 5 or 6 shows because of his throat like that. Yeah.
Okay. All
That
right.
I
It's
remember. That one time in Jacksonville. At one time in Jacksonville, he collapsed on the stage. And we actually had to physically pick him up. And I went to pick him up, and when I went to lift him, I was standing on his hair. And and when we picked him up, I was standing on his hair, and we lifted him up. It was kind of his hair was under my foot. So
all
yeah.
right. Question from Michael Devlin. When the band and crew were flying from town to town, what did they like to do on the plane to decompress or pass the time? I know you on the bus they played cards, but what else did they do to pass the
On the
time?
plane, yeah, we just
Yeah.
mostly just played cards or just sit and waited for us to get there. It was just people would read books.
Okay.
Sometimes Alan would have a guitar on the plane, or Steve, and they would. play around and just
Hmm.
whatever, just.
Okay. All right. Also for Michael Devlin, what did Ronnie think about having to do the various promotional meetings as their reputation grew? Was he okay with doing all these promotional meetings or, particularly for the most recent album?
Yeah, if it had anything to do with the well-being of the band, he would do them. If
Okay.
if he thought that by doing that it would boost the band in some way, yeah, he didn't have any problem with that.
Okay. Question from Andy Blake. Did Skinner have a particular favorite town that they enjoyed playing the most? Or and Kyle Dominy asked another question similar. Was there any place that Ronnie liked to play, or did they have any place where they purposely avoided playing?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
I think although they said they didn't like to play Jacksonville, uh, because it's just they knew so many people. I think deep down inside they really liked to play Jacksonville more than they admitted they did,
Hmm.
just because it was
Yeah.
hometown. I think you're always, more, you're playing your whole hometown. I think you're more into it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I would think so. But probably Atlanta. They played a lot in Atlanta in the early days, and you know,
Okay. All right. The next question, switch over to Cassie. What was Cassie like? And somebody, Jaco asked, is there a particular song that her voice stands out on? Because I know the three
oh,
ladies had different types of voices, right?
yeah, I know Jada. Yeah, I talked
You
to
know Jada
Jada.
Jaco?
Yeah, I talk to her every once in a while. Yeah. Um. What was the question
Well,
again?
about Cassie's voice, I know each of the ladies
Oh
had a
shit,
different type of voice.
Cassie did Broadway. She was in Hair, I think it was.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I know Steve said that for him and his parents went to see her in a Broadway play, and I believe it was Hair, and she came out topless, and he was going, "All right, sis,"
Okay. But what about her? Was there any particular song that her voice is showcased on that you know of? Or, I mean, I know the three of them always sang at the
Oh,
studio.
not really. Not really. All the girls had great voices. Leslie was with Wet Willie and sang with Jimmy Hall and Donna Hall. She was the cutest thing. Leslie, oh my God, she was gorgeous back when she was really, really young. She was just the cutest thing. And JoJo, she was just, you know, Janis Joplin type, just
Mhm.
wailing. And
Yeah.
yeah, Cassie was, yeah, kind of she had a great voice. Like I said, I think she sang Broadway, but yeah, I couldn't
Okay.
tell you who. I don't know who had the best voice. They were,
Well, they sounded beautiful together. They just
yeah,
sounded, it was perfect. It was a perfect match, the three of them.
yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Another question from Brian Gibbons. Hi, Brian, again. We know that Ronnie was very good friends with Gene Odom growing up. Was there anybody else that he was very close to besides Gene?
At home,
Yeah.
um, well, I don't want to be modest or whatever you want to call it, but Ronnie, like I think I said before, Ronnie and Gary and Alan were always
Mhm.
running around together. But then after I got with the band, it was like Alan was married and had a family, and Gary had gotten married. And so when we would go home, we were just so um used to being around each other, I guess when we got home, Ronnie would me and Ronnie hung around a lot. We
Okay.
would go
Yeah.
fishing. Me, well, I was married. I had Chad, and my wife then, Sue, and Judy ran around a lot together. And so when a lot of times when Ronnie and Judy would to get together, Sue and I were involved, and the same with Alan or well, not as much Alan and Kathy. We didn't hang, but my Sue hung around with Kathy a lot, and
Hmm.
all the women when everybody was on the road, all the women kind of hung around together with each
Hmm.
other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's understandable. Okay. Okay, question from Nate Palmer. Are there any good stories about the boys working with Tom Dowd in the studio?
Oh, millions. Oh my God. Yeah. Tom was great. Yeah. He was, yeah, there's a lot of good stories with Tom Dowd. Yeah.
Anything in
Um,
particular that you recall?
oh, they disrespected Tom's opinion a lot they wanted him to produce their records, and because he
Mhm.
worked with the best, Tom did. And yeah,
Okay.
they just God, I just back in the day, I just remember Tom. That's when they had tape, and I just remember him and splicing tape together. He would, he would be on the machine looking at that counter, and they cut the tape and they'd splice them together. Yeah, that was kind of
Cool.
cool.
Okay. Okay. Tell us about the Neil Young feud. This is the question I started to ask last week, and then your company came, but Sweet Home Alabama, Southern Man, were they really feuding or was that just for publicity?
I think I said one other time, it was like, oh, they never got together and had any kind of one-on-one, but there was a thing there that was kind of publicized, so I don't know if they kind of played on it or what, but
Mhm.
Ronnie handed me some notes one time and said, read this and see what you think. It was songs that goes, what the hell? This doesn't make any sense. He goes, it doesn't mean me either. He said, Neil Young sent me this. Is he messing with me, man? Yeah. And then the next record that Neil come out with, it was real obscure, so I don't know.
Now
Yeah.
you're referring to the Southern Man song. Is that the one that Ronnie was questioning? The
Well,
lyrics
yeah,
for Southern
Southern
Man?
Man, yeah, you got, your Cadillac has got a wheel in the ditch and a wheel off the track or what.
So Ronnie got back at
Yeah.
him by writing
Yeah,
Sweet Home
Southern Man
Alabama.
don't need you around anyhow.
Anyhow, good for him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I
All
know
right.
about it.
All right. Got a question from D. Millstone. We're almost done with the questions here. This is great. D. Millstone. I recall hearing a story years ago about Ronnie having a meltdown on stage where he started climbing the backdrop and he had to be escorted from the stage. Is that true?
No, I don't remember. Ronnie had a meltdown and was claiming something. No, that never
Climbing
happened.
the backdrop. I don't know where this
No,
stuff comes from, but you would know.
no, that
Greg
never
Reed knows if it happened, you would know about it. Okay,
happened.
let's see. We're doing really well. So what I've been doing is I've been going through the YouTube comments, and then after you posted on Facebook the other day that we're going to do this, I pulled all the questions, and we already covered the questions regarding the plane crash, but there's still always commentary and questions, and people are still so interested in knowing what happened and where everybody is today and why it happened. So tomorrow is the day that I'll always remember. And I always put something on my Facebook page to remember Lynyrd Skynyrd. And as I said in a couple of the podcasts that I was first on, I was so fortunate to have met Alan Collins, and I'm just so happy that I did, and at least I have that, memory, and having met Gene Odom and all that. But anyway, going to the next question. We're almost at the end here. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, one more, Morris Hancock, and this is actually the last question. Do you remember the venue being changed in late August 77 from Fresno to Concord, California? Because that's the last time I saw them before the crash. But the itinerary shows that it was in Fresno. Anything about that? The itinerary was changed from Fresno to Concord. Do you recall any of that happening?
No, if I knew the exact dates or whatever, I could go back on my itineraries and try to figure it out. But no, I
Yeah.
don't remember. Don't remember that.
Okay.
No,
Okay. And then
no.
there's a gentleman by the name of Theodore Skinner. He says in 1983, Alan Collins Band, he heard that Alan wasn't really into the music as much, and that you were working with them at the time. I know Alan was going through a lot. You had mentioned on previous podcasts that the Alan Collins Band, he wasn't really coming to the studio that much. And so what was going on there? Was he not really into the music as much, or?
Drugs. He was all drugged out. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, yeah,
When
that's
we
what I
went on
recall.
that tour, they were rehearsing to do here, there, and back,
Yeah.
and Alan, they would rehearse a little bit in his backyard back in the studio, and Alan would take off and go to the house and do drugs, and it was
Mhm.
basically Barry Harwood and Randall Hall. Basically, Alan didn't have a whole lot to do with that album at all.
Yeah.
He was all, it's we only played like 6 shows, and then that last show up at um the Lone Star, I think that's the name of it, in New York City, and
Yeah.
Jimmy Daughtry had some guy that was dressed up like Ronnie jumped up on stage and looked like Ronnie, and it freaked Alan out, and he just put his guitar down and went upstairs, and I went up there and I goes, "What's going on, Alan?" He goes, "We're done." I goes, "What do you mean we're done?" He goes, "It's not right." I goes,
Yeah.
"What's not right?" He goes, "Craig,
Yeah.
of all people, it's not
Hmm.
right. We're going home."
Yeah.
And that was it. Yeah, he was he was a mess. Yeah, he was after Kathy died, he didn't he
Hmm.
lost all, he just lost interest in everything.
Oh yeah, and I could tell. I could. It was so easy to see and so evident by all the concerts, all the pictures. People are always posting pictures of Alan Collins on the various pages, and they say, "Oh, he's so handsome and he looks so great." And I'm thinking, he looks like crap. He's his eyes are sad. He's all drugged up. He's not happy.
Well, it was like
Let's
that.
be honest.
I never dreamed that you would leave me, but now you're gone, but
Yeah.
he was really gone, it's like he
Yeah.
didn't think you'd
Yeah.
ever leave him, but now you're gone. I mean, she didn't leave him, she was actually gone, and I think that really
Yeah.
affected him bad.
Did he write that song? I
No.
never dreamed. Oh, because I was on the Street Survivors album. That was a great song. Really
Yeah.
great song. So tell us about the cord that you're wearing around your neck. Isn't that something to do with the plane crash or a piece of
Well,
what is
yeah.
that?
Mark Frank gave me some pieces of the plane that he had um, uh, fashioned into guitar picks, and then there's a woman that makes these little guitar pick holders that I found, and I stuck these pieces of the plane in the little holder and made a necklace out of it.
Very nice. I'm sure people are going to be inquiring about whether there are any more to be purchased.
I don't know. Mark Frank had some pieces of the plane, but he was just selling the pieces. I found the little holder thing to put them in. But
That's nice.
yeah,
And
yeah.
your shirt that you're wearing, you had a great long sleeve Skinner shirt on the other day, and I said, I want to buy one. Where did you get that shirt? Was that one of the original shirts or?
These are some of the old ones.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to arrange a way to buy that from you, maybe for doing the
Yeah.
podcast. I have no Leonard Skinner, nothing. I have no clothing from Leonard Skinner. So
One of these days I'll get up in my attic and
yeah, yeah.
find this
So we
some.
covered all the questions. I mean, that was just from the past 48 hours. So many questions came in, and I know everybody is going to be anticipating watching this video. And thanks for bearing with us. We tried to make a couple of attempts earlier tonight, and they were not.
Well,
We had to
I was
start over again.
I was gonna do this one solo because
Yeah.
you were kind of tied up, and then we tried to do this earlier today, and we got about 50 minutes into it, and the the system froze up and lost it, so we had to come
Yeah.
back and do it. So we'll play this one tomorrow. But
Well,
yeah, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day, out of your schedule to do this. I know you're not usually available to do them on the weekdays, but you kind of arranged it so you could do it, and
I came home
appreciate
from
that.
work. I came home from work. We tried the meeting. It didn't work. I did some Zoom tutoring. Then we tried it again and it worked. So I look a little tired, but it's okay. And I'm
Well,
just so honored to be part of this because I love Leonard Skinner and 45 years. A lot of people, fans today don't even know the original Lynyrd Skynyrd, but I do. And very tragic day in music history, big loss for a lot of people. And I'm so glad that you are here and that you can tell these stories because people want to know. And I'm so glad that you've, overcome all these, most of the injuries from the crash anyway. But there are a lot of people out there that you've had on the show who are still suffering on a day-to-day basis. And, after all this time, I can understand why people are asking, why don't the tribute band help them? Or why isn't it, or somebody helping them because they're suffering and their lives changed on that day? And as you said, there wasn't very much of a insurance policy. What did you say about 40?
well, it's
No.
not gonna come from the band.
Right.
Not that it wouldn't come from the band, but the management just their management doesn't want anything to do with old
Yeah.
Leonard
Yeah.
Skinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just
I get it. I get it. So thanks so much everybody for sending in the questions. Griff might be back next week. I'm willing to help out as often as I can. I know he's been moving in the process of moving for quite a while now. And I know that the hurricane
he
didn't
actually
make things
he
easier.
actually he actually told me, he says he put carpet in his office. Now he's ready to move into his office and set that up. And he said, I used to install carpet when I was younger. He said, and I still have the equipment to do it. He said, and I did it and it looks great. He said, but I'm never doing it again. He said, I'm selling all my carpet equipment, so I'll never do this again. He goes,
Oh,
I am wore out. He said, that's a young man's occupation, laying carpet. Because you got those things you got to it grips under the
yes.
carpet, and then you use
Yeah.
your knee to pound on them, and stretch it
Yes.
out. He's got an artificial hip, and he was
Poor Griff. Because
he
he's
was
had two
saying,
major crashes from his bicycle, two major
oh my God, yeah.
falls,
He said he went into a store the other day, and the guy recognized him because of the big scab on his arm when he ripped his arm.
Poor Griff.
But
Griff is,
he said he might be able to to do another one, coming up next week, and he might have your stuff together. But he's kind of suggested to me that the three of us get on and do them. And And I'm saying, well, we do them on Wednesdays, and normally Kathy's not able to do, them, and maybe on weekends is the only time she can get it together. But we'd love to have you come on anytime you're available. Always bring something
Yeah.
enlightening to the show.
Well, I'm having a blast. I'm having because I lead a very low key life. So I'm getting more friend requests on Facebook. That's
These
about the extent of it.
doing these podcasts is kind of like almost something you never thought you'd be in broadcasting, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're doing radio shows, and it's just something like you just
Yeah.
never speculated you'd ever do. And it's kind of, I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of people that do podcasts, they just enjoy doing them, and as far as me, is I kind of feel privileged that people ask me to divulge information that I know about the band, because I'm actually one of the only people that can, because that was a very small crowd of family that lived that life, and actually were there to see it. So I'm kind of, it's kind of, I'm glad to,
You're famous.
to
You're
divulge any
famous.
information I can. But like I
Yeah.
said before, if I didn't actually see it with my own eyes, I don't really want to talk about it unless there's multiple sources that say, yeah, that's what happened,
Mhm.
because there's just so many rumors going around. I have people all the time asking me about things that happened with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I go, where the hell did you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we
There's
know
so
the
many.
story about the TV being thrown out the window while it was turned on
Yeah, well,
is
that's
true,
true.
and you are responsible for that. You made sure that would happen. That
Yeah,
would
make
happen.
sure that the cord was long enough to be on when it hit the pool.
So if Griff returns next week, which you're anticipating, you're supposed to have, I guess, Mike Estes on. You're going to have
Yeah,
yeah,
Mike Estes and Paul Abraham will make a return visit. And then
nice.
we got Leon's son, little Lee, who's not little Lee anymore, but he's going to come on. And then I think my son Chad is going to come on and kind of interact with him on some old stories. Chad and Lily. Chad stays in touch with my son. Chad stays in touch with Chris Pyle and tries to
Mhm.
stay in touch with that, all the old crowd. I think he stays in touch with Karina, I believe, Gaines,
Oh,
and he used
nice.
to stay in touch with Tammy Van Zant, and he still talks to all Johnny's cousins, and stays in touch with Johnny, and all those old people like that.
Great.
So anyways, I guess I guess we made it through this one without a crash in the
Without a
system.
hitch.
And I guess we're just probably about an hour into this. I don't know. I haven't really paid attention again. So here we go. I guess we're going to wrap up this 36th edition of the Stoned Roadie show. And I'm going to reach for my little clipboard here and start me warming up.
Oh, here we go. He's going to break out in
Happy
song. Uh-oh.
trails to you
My favorite part.
until we meet again. See you next time on the Stone Roadie Show. Say goodbye, Kathy Godsey.
Goodbye, Kathy Godsey.
That's a wrap. Cut. And let me turn this off here. Here we go. Bingo.